Hello again, Struck. Well, today I'm bringing you another build video for Torchlight 3's Cursed Captain class, and this one is for the Electrode setup, and it's a minion summoner build. I called it the ZAPtain Crewmancer, which is kind of like a mixture between the Pirate ZAPtain and the Miasma Crewmancer. So the idea here is to use the summons not for direct damage, but to use the summons to cause procs. Procs like Lightning Strike, level 5 procs like the Ancient Ember Gauntlets, so we can have Chaotic Strikes triggering, we can have Lightning Strikes triggering every time a pet hits. There's a chance, obviously it's not 100%, but every time a pet hits, a minion, a summon hits an enemy, there's a chance to trigger those. And just like on any other Cursed Captain build, we can't have it without things like Black Spot to make the enemies take more damage, things like the banner, which is twice as effective on minions, on crewmates, to give them attack speed and damage. Things like Powder Keg for burst DPS, and I like using Imbue Relic, especially on builds that use Conjure Electrode like this one. We're using 3 pieces of the Commodore set with 3 pieces of the Ancient Ember set, so that we can have some of the energy back when we cast Conjure Electrode on a 20% chance. I've decided to use Fire and Code the Crew because, well, both Code the Crew and First Mate or Matey are broken. But Code the Crew is less broken than First Matey because at least with Code the Crew you can have your summons and they would do damage, whereas with First Mate only does damage with Kegs, with Thieving Spirits, and when you reuse the skill. It doesn't do damage with its regular basic attacks. The bug with Code the Crew is that if they die, you have to wait 2 minutes and not use the skill in 2 minutes, so they the game considers the skill despawned before you can reuse it. I hope you like the build. I actually prefer it to the other summoner build. Now let's talk about the skills needed or recommended for this setup, for this build. But before we do that, you need to know I have 3 pieces of the Commodore cape, which gives me the set bonus, and 2 of those are the cape and the jacket. The third one is the cooldowns, which ideally you would have as well as the third piece, and that means you can get +1 and another +1, so a total of +2 piracy skills and a total of +2 cursed skills levels. Which means that this one being 4 is actually 6. It's 4 +2. This is 8 +2, so this gives this skill the tier 2 bonus. This one gets the tier 3 bonus. This one is tier 2. This one is tier 2, and those are level 10 +2, so they're actually level 12, not 10. And they do benefit from extra weapon damage bonus from those extra levels. Now let's quickly go through all the levels I've put on each skill and then talk about why afterwards. So there's 5 points Lightning Strike, 1 point Tingling Sensation, 10 points Conjure Electrode, or you can go for a Walk-Wise Storm setup. That would require some changes in the gear. Then tier 2, 4 points Black Spot, 8 points tier 3 Dread Banner, 4 points tier 2 Ghost Ship, and 10 points tier 3, so level 12 Code the Crew, 10 points tier 3 level 12 Powder Keg, and again level 12 tier 3 Fire. Tier 2 Double Cross with 4 points and Wraith Walk 4 points tier 2. Now why? Why do we take those skills? Wraith Walk, it's our mobility skill. Tier 1 gives it an additional charge, tier 2 gives it additional Cursed Captain skill cooldown. So all of those skills here and here would get that cooldown. This one we want the tier 1 bonus, tier 2 bonus, and tier 3 bonus, as well as that extra damage we get for those 2 bonus levels. That's why it's maxed out. For this one we also care about all 3 bonuses, and we want that extra weapon damage for fire, especially good if we are gonna be focusing on fire, although I would suggest going for Powder Keg. The safe bet is stacking Powder Keg levels and Powder Keg damage, but there's the option of doing the same for fire if you feel like it. Here we only use this as a passive and only for the tier 2 bonus, because the tier 1 bonus affects the skill itself, and we use it as a passive as we mentioned. The same goes for Ghost Ship, only for the passive and only for the tier 2 bonus. Code the Crew, maxed out, we want the tier 1, tier 2 and tier 3 bonuses. And we want that little bit of extra weapon damage. I mean, it's not necessary, you can save those 2 points from it and keep it at level 8. And then put them into Energizer, or Tingling Sensation, or Shocking Display, up to you. Or even more points into Dread Banner for faster cooldown. It's not a bad choice if you don't want Code the Crew maxed out. Dread Banner, we want the tier 3 bonus for the stun and the tier 1 bonus. The tier 2 bonus, it doesn't matter for us. Damage to your pet means damage to the actual pet, this pet. So this passive is not gonna affect your minions. Where it says minions, it's anything that's not you or your pet, that's under your control, with the exception of automatons, explodobots and stuff like that. But pet damage is your actual pet, and your actual pet only. This one is here for the damage to relic skills. We want that extra damage to relic skills, and we want that little bit of extra detonations, extra doubloons that we get from Unholy Detonation. We don't really count much on the tier 1 bonus, the tier 2 bonus is why I put more points into it. If you feel like you don't need the damage to relic skills, which actually boosts Conjure Electrode, then you can just put it as a 0+2 levels and just use it for the debuff, for the curse, which is another major reason why this skill should be in the loadout, even if it's 0 points. Because with this skills 40% damage, vulnerability on an enemy, and this skills 25% extra damage and movement speed and crit chance and so on, especially with doubled effect for the crewmates, it's very, very good, very nice. Your crewmates kind of get maximum attack speed almost. They get 50% attack speed and the limit is 60 from just the banner, which is pretty solid. Now, here this is maxed out, must be maxed out. This is a major source of damage, you shouldn't underestimate this skill. This is huge source of damage because every hit from your minion and you can trigger this. Procs cannot trigger other procs, so shock bolts from chance to shock like Tingling Sensation or the one from the shield cannot trigger this one, but the shock bolts from Conjure Electrode are considered as the skill itself, which means, as you can see here, see how it's triggering things. It's triggering the lightning bolts because those shock bolts are actually the skill itself and not shock bolts. I mean, it's still the shock bolts, but not the actual shock bolts that are procs. So keep that in mind, and this is a huge source of damage if every single hit from the pet has a chance to proc this. This one is level 1 just because it gives you extra 3 seconds duration to the shock. You don't care much about the chance to shock because when you max it out at 5 levels, that's gonna be what, 10%, which is still good. It's still better than not having it, but I really suggest going for 1 point here if you have chance to shock in a weapon like in a shield. If you don't have chance to shock in the shield, max this one out until you do. It also adds extra weapon damage. It also adds extra 50% weapon damage to the shocks, which may not be a major source of damage, but it's nice to have it there. This one is maxed out, and we want all those bonuses from it. And there's an alternative setup where you're using Localized Storm maxed out. It's a little bit of an easy mode, better DPS when you use Localized Storm, a little bit boring, and that means if you're using Localized Storm you don't need Ancient Ember Pants and Gloves, which means you're better off using the Winter Weave Pants and Gloves for the potion cooldown on the pants and for the defensive abilities of the gloves. I'm gonna try and show you. This is what Winter Weave Gauntlets do, and as for the Winter Weave Pants, I probably won't be able to show you because they're on a different hero. I can show you from here though, which also brings us to the Legendarium. Just a moment, let me show you the Winter Weave, and then I'm gonna show you about the Legendarium. So this is the Winter Weave Pants. Even if it's just the first piece without having the full set, having those pants and having those Winter Weave Gauntlets is good for the survivability of any build. And now, as I said, this brings us to the Legendarium. Before we talk about why the Woodsbeast Sandals are here, I need to mention something. Ancient Ember Boots gives us Imbue Relic. And Imbue Relic, as you can see, I can use my energy here. And now I have 28, but it fills it back to 100. And that's a great skill. Imbue Relic is a great skill, you get it from the Ancient Ember Boots. Now you need to have Ancient Ember Boots or Woodsbeast Sandals equipped. Whichever has better rolls, better defense, etc. More about the rolls during the gear segment, which is next, would be equipped. So equip the Woodsbeast Sandals or the Ancient Ember Boots, whichever is better, and the other one put in the Legendarium. On top of that, you want My Lil General. My Lil General, every time you use Imbue Relic and refuel your energy, My Lil General would be triggered, and it would give you damage, a little bit of damage reduction, and casting speed for 8 seconds. And you can use that every 30 seconds with the cooldown reduction from the Frostwall and North Mace, or the Glacier set instead of a North Mace from the set. Now here for the third slot there are options. One option is the Showman, and I prefer using that when I'm stacking damage to Powder Keg. But you're free to experiment, and if you have this item, which I don't, the many tentacled one, that would make the Cannoneer summoned by fire, firing 3 shots in a cone with each attack instead of 1. Each dealing 50% more damage, so it's gonna do more damage, it's gonna be better, and then you might wanna stack damage to fire and levels to fire instead of damage to Powder Keg and levels to Powder Keg. Another option would be the Crab Cover. The Crab Cover is cool. It's a cool thing to put there, to have a giant crab monster. I haven't seen it, I haven't tested it. And Big Fish, another thing I haven't seen and tested. Right now you're seeing that Broadside is level 0 plus 2. You can feel free to, as I said, remove some points. You can remove a point from Call the Crew. Actually, you can remove 2 points from here. You can maybe even remove all those 4 points and keep this as level 0 plus 2. Those are places from where you can take points and put points here. Fire as well. If you think 8 plus 2 is enough, if you're stacking damage bonus to Powder Keg, that's good. I wouldn't recommend removing points from Powder Keg. Even if you're not stacking damage to Powder Keg, those 2 levels give you a lot of percent of weapon damage, and they're worth it. But yeah, Broadside with the Big Fish is another option. So you have 4 options there. I mean, there's even more options, such as the Winter Weave Cuirass, which would give you some gear work, 20% gear work. It's another good option there if you don't have anything better. It's worth swatting for the time being. I'm just trying to show you here. Winter Weave Cuirass, there we go. But yeah, that's it. Showman, many tentacled one, Big Fish, Crab Cover or Winter Weave Cuirass are good options. There are obviously much more options here. This is the slot I would leave up to you to decide what to put, but I would strongly recommend having the Lil General slotted when you have the full set, or at least the Frostwall there, and ideally you would have North Mace or Glacier Sedge, which look like this. This is the North Mace, this is the Glacier's Edge, and the Frostwall looks like this. So yeah, let's talk about the pet skills now. Deadlier Strikes, Battle Cry, Zoomies, Healing Friendship. Healing Friendship can heal us, Battle Cry can buff our damage, Zoomies can buff our pets' attack and movement speed. More about that in the gear segment, but it's in general to proc certain things. And Deadlier Strikes is 15% crit chance to us and nearby allies. This 15% crit chance alongside the 25 crit chance with the Woodsbeast Sandals gives you the limit, which is 40%, which means you don't have to stack crit chance in your gear. Whereas Zoom-ins makes Drad Neckband or the Token of Invigoration proc more often, because the pet attacks more often. And next will be the gear segment. Here we are in the segment where we talk about items. What items, what affixes, why, and so on. First I'm gonna list the items. You want Frostwall alongside a North Mace or a Glacier's Edge as a weapon. You want 3 pieces of the Commodore set, ideally that would be the cape, jacket and pauldrons. Then you want 3 pieces of the Ancient Ember set. When using Conjure Electrode. If you're not using Conjure Electrode, you just need the Ancient Ember Boots, and you can replace the gloves and pants for like Winter Weave or something else that you like. But why do we need 3 pieces Ancient Ember? Because of the pants. The pants give us, instead of 10-20% chance to gain 25 energy when using Conjure Electrode, which is half of the cost of the skill. So there's 1/5 chance when using the skill to gain half of the cost of it. Otherwise it's 10% chance. And then the Ancient Ember gloves again are pretty good thing as a fewer Ancient Ember item, because Chaotic Strikes is another thing that we can proc with minions. See, if you remember in the skill segment I said Lightning Strikes can be procced by every minion attack. But on top of Lightning Strike, another thing that every minion attack can proc is Chaotic Strikes. And even if you don't put points into Chaotic Strikes, it's still good DPS. It's amazing. So you want 3 Ancient Ember pieces, 3 Commodore pieces, and you want Drat Neckband, Token of Invigoration, and ideally Token of Rapid Bartering, but this is optional, you can replace it with anything else if you don't feel you need it. I mean, the pet returns within 16 seconds rather than 2 minutes with that item, so it's definitely worth it. Now let's talk about why. The Drat Neckband lets us heal. Every time the pet hits, the pet heals us and them. And that means the more hits per second, the better. That means we want pet attack speed. This one again, on pet hit, 10% chance to refresh cooldown of pet active skills. Which means we would want more attack speed and ideally stack even more pet cooldown reduction. This is why we use Zoomies. Zoomies helps the pet attack quicker, which means it procs Token of Invigoration and Drat Neckband more often. You would want attack speed. Over there where I have pet crit chance, you would want attack speed. And where I have faster cooldown for pet active skills, you want faster cooldown for pet active skills. And in the socket for the Drat Neckband, put whatever. But in the socket of the other 2 items, you want this thing, this socket thing that you're seeing, faster cooldown for pet active skills. Which means you can get attack speed cooldown, attack speed cooldown, attack speed cooldown in the middle on all 3. And then you can get cooldown and cooldown on those 2. And for this one, you cannot get cooldown in the socket, so put whatever. So it doesn't have to be a North Mace. The weapon can be a Glacier's Edge, whichever one drops with better stats, which we talk in a moment. Just equip that one and wear alongside it the Frostwall. For the weapon, the best stats to get would be flat damage. As much flat damage as possible. You can see, for example, let's just show you one blue weapon with flat damage. See, this one has 2 times flat damage, but it doesn't have a socket. So ideally you would have something like that in the middle. 2 times, if you can get 3 times, sure, I've never seen 3 flat damages, but if you can get 3 flat damages, get them. And ideally it would be ice damage, because the North Mace and the Glacier's Edge always have ice, which means you can stack percent ice damage and you can stack flat ice damage in the sockets and get the most out of it. So now we know flat damage is the best, but what's the second best? The second best, I would say there's 2 things that are worth it. One of those 2 things is crit damage, like the one you see in this item. The other thing is +3 skill levels to Powder Keg, or +3 skill levels to fire if you're stacking. You have to pick one skill. I suggest Powder Keg, but if you wanna go stack damage to fire, that's not a bad thing. Stacking damage to fire. If you're stacking levels and damage to fire, you would have to get damage to fire here instead of Powder Keg, damage to fire here instead of damage to Powder Keg, and damage to fire here instead of Powder Keg damage. And you would have to get 3 levels to to fire instead of powder keg here, and 3 levels to fire instead of powder keg here. Another reasonable thing is chance to freeze. Yeah, it's not gonna give you great DPS, but it's gonna give you amazing crowd control. You cannot freeze bosses, but anything else is fair game, and you can freeze it, and it can work. It's not a high priority, it's just if it's gonna be a shitty bonus, might as well be chance to freeze. So ideally maybe get 3 FWATs or 2 FWATs and crit damage, or 2 FWATs and 3 levels to powder keg, or FWAT, crit damage and 3 levels to powder keg with a socket where you put FWAT damage. On the shield you want 9-10,000 defense, 14-15% block chance at the top. In the middle as much block chance as you can get. Not block chance, as much defense as you can get, ideally physical. And if you get some mix of different defenses, that's fine too. And then in the shield you want to use elemental bonus to get this one. X% chance to shock for Y seconds, zaps other enemies for Z weapon damage. XYZ would be those numbers here, which are random, but have minimum and maximum. Now, talking about perfect rolls for the shoulder, this is kind of a perfect roll. Defense at the top, powder keg damage, and crit damage, and a socket where you put more defense. If you're going for fire, just replace the powder keg with fire damage. This same powder keg damage can roll here and here, and this is your number 1 priority on all 3 pieces here. Fire or powder keg % damage. Then the second best used to be flat damage. I haven't seen flat damage for this and this rolling anymore. For this one the second best is crit damage, because it doesn't get flat, or % elemental damage. So since flat damage doesn't seem to roll anymore on chest and legs, the second best for chest would be crit damage, like this one, but on the chest. And the third best would be % bonus ice damage, like this one. It can roll on chest as well. And why ice? Because North Mace and Glacier sets base damage. The one at the very top is always ice, which means you can stack ice damage there, you can stack ice damage in the socket, ideally roll more ice damage, and then you can stack some % ice damage here, here and here. Those 3 pieces can get % ice damage. So this one can get crit chance, but you don't want it. Again, number 1 would be % damage to either powder keg on fire. Second best thing probably would be, it used to be flat elemental damage, but now it's just % elemental. So second best would be bonus damage to ice. And then defenses. For every single piece, as much defense as you can get at the top and in the sockets. Here the best things would be this. Something like that. Good defense at the top. Crit damage, number 1 priority in the middle. Bonus ice damage, number 2 priority in the middle, and then a socket with some more defense. As much defense as possible. On the gauntlets you can get certain things like relic energy generation, relic energy cost reduction. Top priorities would be those. Minus relic energy cost plus relic energy generation. If you're using Walkaway Storm, you could try and get plus duration to Walkaway Storm, but when you have Imbue Relic, it's kind of not that needed. There's also duration for Black Spot, duration for Black Banner, not bad shit rolls. It's from the good side of shit rolls. Next, for the cape, top priority is plus 3 levels or more or less, plus levels to powder keg, and then plus levels to fire if you're using fire as a stacking. I mean, if you can get plus 3 levels to powder keg and plus 3 levels to fire, top choice. Crit can roll here, crit chance, not crit damage, but again, it's not gonna be that great to use it when we already are maxing our crit chance. Other things that can roll here, very good things. Minus relic energy cost for relic skills and plus relic energy generation. And that pretty much is it for the roles. Hopefully it was clear. If I missed something, it will be on the website most likely. And this is the gameplay segment where I show you more of the build in action and talk about the rotation. And the rotation is simple. I would start with summoning Code the Crew, then using black spot on the highest priority target such as a green or yellow or a boss monster. Then I would use the banner somewhere around there to stun and to buff my minions and myself. Then next I would use, if I can, any Conjure Electrode if I have energy. After that Imbue Relic, and then either some Conjure Electrode or Kegs, either of the two or at the same time, whichever you want. You have to use those two. In what order, up to you. Sometimes I do Powder Keg, sometimes I do Conjure Electrode first. After that remains the part where you're spamming Fire, Wraith Walk, Fire, Wraith Walk, Fire, Wraith Walk. Wraith Walk helps collect coins, Fire summons another crewmate, and that gives us some extra DPS. To get notified when I upload more content for this game or other games like this one, which would be wooters of all varieties, isometric, third-person ARPGs, wooter shooters and all sorts of wooters like that, you could subscribe to my channel and hit that bell button to not miss out on my content updates. And optionally, you can even join as a member of the Struck Club on YouTube as a channel member to get access to exclusive perks such as special emotes custom made by me, special badges custom made by me that represents how many months you have been a member for, as well as opt-in of editing tutorials that I can give for Photoshop, Adobe Premiere, as well as shoutouts and things like that. And I would like to use this part of the video to thank all my YouTube members and Twitch subscribers. Thank you for supporting the channel and keeping me going. Thank you also for watching this video, everyone. Keep it cool, Struck Club. Until next time, and goodbye.